Hey there, biologists! In this video, I will be walking you through the requirements for your genetic disorder research project. In order to access this file, which will be your project, you need to go to the Genetic Disorder Research Project folder, and you will find this file located in this first assignment. So you'll notice that there are a number of files here. This is where everything you need for the GDRP is located, including the links for where you will sign up for a topic of your choice. You'll be turning in your research document to Turnitin, which is part one of your research, which I'll walk you through. And then eventually you will be creating a presentation either in a Google slideshow format or a digital poster presentation format. And then this is where you will post these specific parts of your project. So I'll go through these eventually in a probably separate video, but let's start with the first part of this project, which is your research itself. So obviously you found this video hopefully by clicking here. Or if you didn't, this is where you'll find your research file. And you will start by clicking here to open up this file in your Colab account. So it should automatically generate a copy of this for you. So this is your personal document. This is a template that you will be filling in your research into. So I'm going to walk you through the project information, including objectives and overview, the recommended resources that we are providing you to get your research started, and an overview about academic dishonesty and plagiarism to help make sure that you get credit for your project and that you don't end up with a zero. All right, and then we'll walk you through the first stage of this project, which is stage one, which is your research itself. Your research is in 7 parts, including your title, symptoms of your genetic disorder, population statistics, the genetic cause and inheritance patterns, genetic testing and diagnosis, treatment and management of the genetic disorder, and lastly, your bibliography or your sources cited. Stage 2, again, is your presentation, and I'll put that in a separate video just to keep this one as short as possible. So the objectives of this project are essentially to learn about the causes and effects of genetic mutations and disorders and apply everything you've been learning about regarding DNA, protein synthesis, and heredity. You will understand the hardships of living with a genetic disorder, apply biological concepts to the understanding of health issues in society, and you will communicate your scientific and social understanding with your peers. So again, you'll be conducting research about a genetic disorder, which you will then use your research to create a presentation that you will share. So stage 1, as I mentioned, is the research itself, which is what you're going to be putting into this actual document. As you conduct your research, you will write and record your notes in your own words. You will save images and develop your bibliography here in this document. You will then turn this research document into Turnitin before you begin your presentation to ensure that you have authentic and original work in your research. So you'll be using Turnitin to check your work for originality. You'll review the sections shown here, so you have each section that you'll be putting in your research, and you'll make sure that you're looking through it and make sure that very little of it is highlighted, with the exception of a few direct quotes that you are allowed to have if they are properly cited. And then again, stage 2 will be in a separate presentation. But you do not start part 2 until you've done all of these parts of stage 1. What are the recommended resources for your project? We've given you some really credible, high-quality sources that will help you meet the criteria for almost every part of this project. The best one for finding information about genetic causes, basic information, is the Genetics Home Reference. You'll also find information at the Mayo Clinic website, the Centers for Disease Control website, and the National Organization for Rare Diseases. You'll also want to do a Google search for a nonprofit organization or public foundation that is dedicated to your topic. So for example, if your topic is Down syndrome, there is a research foundation that's dedicated just to better understanding global Down syndrome, and this is one example, which is the Global Down Syndrome website. And they have a lot of information about life with Down syndrome and so on and so forth. So these are really great resources too. Plagiarism. Some of us really kind of struggle in our high school years with understanding what plagiarism does and does not constitute. So I think we really need to go through this in depth. So please make sure you watch this, because if you do not follow the directions here and you do plagiarize, even by accident, you will get a 0 on the project. Okay, so plagiarism is defined as taking another's words, thoughts, or ideas and representing them as your own. Examples of this include using all or part of another's speech, paper, or ideas, including websites, as your own. Using a direct quotation, copying and pasting, without citing the source. Copying a passage word for word and not using quotation marks or properly citing the source. Substituting words or rearranging the phrasing of a passage without indicating that changes have been made. and without citing the source, or rearranging the order of sentences or ideas from the original passage to present it as your own. These are all examples of plagiarism, and it's really important that you recognize that you need to get away from copying and pasting or slightly changing the wording of something and trying to turn that in as your own work, because we are using the Turnitin feature, which highlights specifically sections of your work that identically match or even partially match other students' work or public website work. So make sure that when you're using your research and you're looking at websites that you are rewording things into a 10th grader understanding of these concepts. And again, if we find that a significant portion of your work, or even a partial part of your work, is intentionally or unintentionally cited or plagiarized, then unfortunately it will be graded with a 0. Okay, so what are the research requirements for your project? So again, this is where you will be filling in your work. So how do you know what topic to sign up for, first of all? So again, you go back to our GDRP folder, and in this folder you will find a topic sign up. So you will click here, and this will bring you to one for your class period. It will say your class period at the top. And you will type in your name, depending on your cohort, only one student per topic per cohort. And do not replace a student's name, even if it's accidentally. So if you see a student has this highlighted, don't type in there. And if you are leaving your highlight there and you're not filling in anything, you're at risk of someone replacing your highlighting. So if you're going in here, keep your cursor over here and then only type in where you're specifically going to type your name, okay? And again, do not delete people from this list because I can see who edits what. So say, for example, you are cohort A, you can choose one of these topics and you'll put your first name and last initial. But there's also these topics down here at the bottom. So there's two categories of topics. There are single gene disorders, which are diseases caused by a mutation in one specific gene, or there are chromosomal disorders, which are extra or missing chromosomes, sections of chromosomes deleted or added, so on and so forth. And so you'll choose a topic, you'll put your name, and then for these types of topics, we actually gave you some additional information to help guide your work. So we gave you an example of a type of gene that is affected by the chromosomal mutation that occurs, whether it's an extra copy or missing copy, so on and so forth. So these are some of the genes associated with these chromosomal disorders. And in some cases, it's something called mosaicism. And that information is provided in your research document. We'll walk through that later. But this is a really cool example of something that's pretty unique about some of these disorders, including Down syndrome. Okay, so we'll talk about those coming up. But this is where you'd sign up for your topic. And then, so say, for example, this is where I'm typing. So you type my name and then the name of the genetic disorder. Say, for example, I was researching cystic fibrosis. I can spell fibrosis. There we go. And then I might find an image relevant to this and paste it. And if I'm pasting anything, including images, or again, if I'm typing research, make sure you're always citing your sources. So say, for example, I wanted an introductory image about cystic fibrosis. I might go to Google, and then I might go to image search, and you can find a lot of these images also on the websites we're providing, and make sure you're looking for something that's credible. You want to make sure you're looking for .orgs, .nets, or .govs especially. So here's a medlineplus.gov, that's a credible source, or mayoclinic.org. So say, for example, I want to use this image. I'm going to open this, copy this image, and then I'm going to go to my research. I might paste it here. And then I'm going to make it smaller just to make it easier for here, and later I can make it bigger if I want. And then I will need to cite where I got this from. And so using your parenthetical citation, this is a short form, but you also need to put this in your bibliography. So I'm going to start with the bibliography. Your bibliography is way at the end. So for example, here's your bibliography. And I would type the information using this format. It's highlighted right here for you. Author or organization name. The organization name is Mayo Clinic, because there probably isn't like a single author on this. It might be managed by a group of people. I don't see a specific person's name anywhere. I see date updated. This is important. This is when the page was updated by Mayo Clinic staff. So I'm just going to put Mayo Clinic as the source. Okay, so Mayo Clinic, period. Date of publication. Sometimes that's posted at the top. But I don't see posted at the top. So if I don't see posted at the top, I'm going to scroll down to kind of the bottom of this article. And that's where I found this date right here, March 14th, 2020. So I'm going to copy that date, paste it here. Okay. close parentheses. Now, sometimes there isn't a date, either at the top or the bottom. If that was the case, you would do no date, period. And again, all of this information can be found here. If you need help on your sources cited and examples, we've provided multiple examples in this page right after your bibliography, okay? And then you would type the title of the web page in italices. So I'm going to make this italic, and the title of the website is Cystic Fibrosis, period. And then retrieve from, and then I would paste the URL. So this is my long format of my bibliography. So when I copied and pasted that image above, you're going to use these first two parts of this. Copy. I'm going to go back up to where I was, which was the title. And so I'm going to cite the source using this shorter format, author name and date. So the author name was Mayo Clinic. I'm just going to change the location of this parentheses. You now know exactly where this image came from. So if you ever need to go back to find that information or add more pictures or change which picture you want to use or so on and so forth, you've got it cited. This is a basic expectation. It is required that you're doing this for all of the information that you type in this document and all of the images that you use, okay? Again, if you don't do that, you might lose points or not get credit at all. So that's where you're typing all of your information. This was specifically for your title. You'll also have a section of your research that's dedicated to symptoms. So again, if I was researching the symptoms of cystic fibrosis, I might delete this, and then underneath it, I would read through these first. I would read through the requirements, and then in my research, I would paste information, or rewrite information that I find in this space below. So this includes a list and description of how this disease affects the body, including how it affects external appearances or how the body works internally and externally. Include definitions for medical terms you might not understand. Don't just use a big word that's scientific or medical that you don't understand without explaining it more in depth, okay? Describe health complications that may occur as a result of this genetic disease. List the life expectancy for someone who has this disease. Include at least 1 to 3 images that show some of the symptoms of this disorder. This image that I had up here would have also counted for down here, so I could just copy and paste what I put up there down here if I wanted to, or I could find more images. And then again, cite your sources using parenthetical citation and make sure you put everything in your bibliography. Sometimes I give additional recommendations, so if the symptoms are too difficult to summarize in your words, it is appropriate to use quoted text with proper citation format. So here's an example. If I were to go to my cystic fibrosis website, and maybe there's an example here where here's some examples of symptoms. You know, it'd be really hard for me to rewrite this in my own words because it's pretty straightforward. Like I can't really rewrite wheezing. Okay, that's just one of these things. So this is an example where it is more appropriate to maybe copy and paste this. And then I would go here. I would copy and paste it here. You might need to reformat because sometimes it'll paste in like different fonts and so on and so forth. And then I would add my quotation marks. So quotation, quotation, and then I would cite that website. It was Mayo Clinic, March 14th, I think it was March 14th, 2020. Okay, so that's an example. I just cited exactly where that came from. I am now not plagiarizing. But here's the thing. I don't want entire sections of this. Okay, this should be a pretty limited case basis in which you're directly copying and pasting. Try your best to try to change things and reword things in your own words. But I do recognize that this will be necessary sometimes. But for example, here's an example of a word where I don't think any of us understand what sinusitis is. So this is an example of where you might have to research what is sinusitis, and then you could provide some additional information here. So sinusitis is ... and then I would describe it in my own words, and then I would cite the source that I got that information from. Okay? So I expect to see sources cited for all of the information you're putting in this research document. All right, you'll then also research population statistics. How common is this disorder in the general population? Is there a specific age, biological sex, geographic area, ethnicity that has a higher occurrence of this disorder in comparison to the general population? Sometimes it's no. Like if you don't see anything specifically saying like this is more commonly found in X, Y, or Z, then the answer is no and you don't have to provide that information. But sometimes it'll be pretty obvious. It will say like this specific genetic disorder is way more common in people who live in India or people of European descent. Okay, so those are 2 examples. And again, cite your sources. All right, so you will have either a single gene disorder where you will describe the genetic cause and inheritance, or you'll have a chromosomal disorder. So if you are the single gene disorder, this is the information you'll research. If you're researching a chromosomal disorder, you can ignore this page and instead go to the second page. And vice versa for single gene. If you're a single gene disorder, you can ignore the chromosomal disorder research. And that information you will find in the sign-up sheet. Again, so say you're like, I forgot which one I have, go back to the sign-up sheet, find your name, and this say, I was cystic fibrosis, so I have a single gene disorder. So I would focus on this research right here, and I could even just delete this page or just ignore it outright, okay? So make sure you're using the correct criteria to research for your specific topic. We've provided a really highly recommended source right here. This is the Genetics Home Reference. You go to this website, and then you can go to genetic conditions. You can search by letter here, or you can type up here. Cystic fibrosis is my topic. Click enter, and then it will bring up a list of options. So cystic fibrosis, this is the website, or this is the page specifically on this website that I want to use. So I'm going to click here. And here you can find information about the summary, diagnosis and tests, prevention, risk factors. Everything you want is here, especially the descriptions about the genetics. So where do I find the information about the genetics? So there's some great information here in terms of a basic summary of what this is. This is a really great starting place if you're just starting your research as well. What I love about this is it also provides some additional recommended resources. Here's a link directly to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation or the American Lung Association. These are two great foundations that provide additional information. You'll also find information about diagnosis and testing at some of these other websites. But then for the genetics component, if you look right up here back at the top, there's a specific part where you click on genetics. And we want to focus on the Medline Genetics website. So I'm going to click here. So this is the National Library of Medicine. And it will bring me to a detailed list of information about the specific genetic causes associated with cystic fibrosis. It even provides, again, more in-depth information about what this disorder is, what causes it, what are the characteristics of it. Sometimes there are great images. And then if you scroll down, you can find frequency. So this is statistics. This is very helpful. And here it says it's less common, or let's see, the disease commons in 1 in 2,500 to 3,500 white newborns, and it's less common in other groups. So this is an example of where it says that it's slightly different depending on your ethnicity. Causes, this is what we're looking for specifically for this section, genetic cause and inheritance. So this will describe the specific gene that is mutated. You can click on this link right here, and it will bring you to more information about this gene in particular. It will tell you how this gene and how its mutation specifically relates to protein production and protein function, and therefore causes the characteristics that we see. This is all super important information for filling in this information here. Okay, so for example, you need to describe what chromosome is affected, what is the name of the gene, what is the inheritance pattern, so on and so forth. Also include images as much as possible. Now I have noticed that when I was doing this video that this website has changed its format. And some of the resources that used to be here are no longer here, and that includes some very detailed images of the specific chromosome and the gene. So those unfortunately are missing right now. I'm going to try to find more information about where those images went and or how to get those available to you to fulfill the requirements for the images part here. Okay, because sometimes Google Images does not find the credible images we're looking for. So I will follow up with you about this specific part of your project later. But all of the other information can be found on this website. So again, you'd be filling that information here and citing your sources. Now, if you are the chromosomal disorder group, which means you're one of these topics below, that means you'll have this also additional information here to guide your research. So if this is you, you will still use the same website, but you'll be looking for some other information. You'll still be looking for, well, what is the chromosome affected? Is it chromosome 4 or is it X or Y chromosome? What caused this mutation? Is it because of a mutation during meiosis or a translocation, part of a chromosome broke off? And then you will again look for more information about a specific gene that is associated with this disorder. Again, all of that information is here for those. And you'll research that gene by typing that in here. And sometimes it's called mosaicism. So if you take a look, let's do an example of Down syndrome. This is an example of a genetic disorder that is chromosomal. It's where you have an extra chromosome 21. And if I were to go to genetics, Medline Plus Genetics, and then the inheritance and causes. Okay, so most cases of Down syndrome result from trisomy 21. Oh, this is a fantastic image. This is an example of one that you would include when you're doing your image of a karyotype. So this page has some of the pictures we're looking for, which is great. And here it describes a very small percentage of people with Down syndrome have an extra copy of chromosome 21 in only some of their body cells. In some people, this condition is called mosaic Down syndrome. This is super cool and super fascinating, and it's only recently better understood. So this is part of the topic that you will be explaining a little bit more in depth about here, whereas people with the single gene disorder was going more in depth into the specific gene. So you'll be talking about mosaicism in the case of Down syndrome and Edwards, Klinefelters, and Patel. Okay. And again, sources, and then also citing everything. Make sure you cite your sources. Use the recommendations here. Okay. You'll also be researching genetic testing and diagnosis. How do doctors determine if someone has this disease? For example, when a woman is pregnant, sometimes she will have genetic testing done while the baby's developing, and that will help them understand if the baby has any differences. And then you can also do after birth, where sometimes it's pretty noticeable if someone is born a little bit different. And you can learn more about that information here, but that was also covered in one of the activities we did earlier this trimester. And again, cite your sources. All right, we're getting close to the end here. So treatment and management. Describe medications or treatments and therapies that help improve the quality of life, manage symptoms, and or decrease pain or discomfort. Examples could include bone marrow transplants, limiting substances in the diet, enzyme replacement therapy, surgery, gene therapy, counseling, speech therapy, physical therapy, behavioral therapy, music therapy, and support services. Notice that none of this includes the word cure. There is no cure for these genetic disorders. The best we can do for now is to try to improve their quality of life. And again, this is where you'll need to think open-minded. It's not always just like a drug or treatment. Sometimes it's as simple as just getting help with learning how to talk a little bit better, or better managing your emotions, or going through music therapy to help improve mood and feel connected to people. So there's a lot of broad definitions here to treatment and management. So think creatively when you're looking up this information. A lot of this information here is found on the foundation website. So for example, the Public Foundation for Down Syndrome would have a lot of information about these resources. And choose two images, find two images that show examples of this. So for example, there was a really beautiful picture of a girl with Down syndrome it was one of these websites where I saw her and she had paint on her fingers. So that's an example of where doing arts and crafts is a really great way to support these people with Down syndrome in one case. And that would be a great picture to include where you could show that she's going through painting or something like that, okay? And again, cite your sources. All right, and then of course your bibliography. Remember to always cite your sources. I included an example here. And this citation guide will walk you through all of this again. But I will make a second shorter video where I demonstrate how I can make my citations in my bibliography in case you need extra help with that later on. So that way you don't have to go back to this video and dig through it. So information is in the citation guide. The basic format is right here, but then I will also make a second short video in case you need help with that later. Okay? All right, part 2 is your presentation, but that's not as important for now because you need to focus on this stuff first. One thing that's a really good tip to do is when you're doing your research, you can highlight things and check them off by highlighting them green. So that way as you're going through, just highlight everything green that you've completed. So that way it's super easy to see what you still have to finish when you're doing your research. Okay, I think I've gone through everything related to this specific part of your project. If you have questions, let me know via message or in class. I encourage you to come to Zoom, and I will be doing basic introductions, answering questions as you go through your research. And I think that is everything. And again, I'll follow up with presentation details later. So in terms of due date, I believe that the due date for the research itself is due Friday. After we come back from spring break. So keep that in mind. You have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of work time on your research, but it is due Friday night. And after that, you will use your Turnitin, and you'll turn it in here. Research document submission, Turnitin. This is where you'll turn it in and you'll get feedback about how much of your research is authentic. And keep in mind, you'll get a really, really high number. It'll say like 70% or 80, even up to 80 to 85% of your research document will show up highlighted as copied. And that's because everyone is using the same template. So the overall goal is probably somewhere between 70 to 85% is copied or not original, but then the rest of that should be original work in your own words. So you'll turn it in here on Friday, and then after that you'll get time to work on your presentation. And again, I'll post a second video for that. Again, shoot me messages if you have questions. Make sure you sign up for a topic. Do some preliminary research information to see which topics interest you. If there's a topic you're interested in researching that is not on this list, send me a message. We can talk about it. I will do some research to determine if your topic has enough information on websites such as this to be able to meet the criteria for our project, okay? So send me a message if you have a new topic that you're interested in. Thank you for watching. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Ta-ta!